Everybody ready? Come on, let's go.
The Thorne Show! Let's go! The Thorne Show! Let's go!
Hey, yo, what's up? This is Rick Thorne. Welcome to the show. Stoked that you're here. I got an amazing guest. Actually, someone that, like, when I was a kid, I looked up to this guy because he was in one of the best movies ever for BMX riding. Bill Allen, what up, dude? What are you doing?
Hey, now, I'm here. Really excited to be here. I'm always honored to be in your presence. It's really the guys who were the outer edge of the sport that really drove it to where it is now. So guys like you can kind of stand back and go, look at what we built.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy is you were part with so everyone out there, you're Crew Jones, you're Bill Allen, but you're Crew Jones, movie RAD, amazing at the time, did a lot for the sport, the 80s, killed it. But you were with the guys in BMX that were before me, that actually started it before me, like Eddie Fiola, and it was Martin Aparicio in that as well?
Sure.
And what were the other bike riders in the movie RAD?
I mean, Sheepdog, Kevin Hull, you had Mike Miranda.
Yep.
I was just hanging out with all those guys over the weekend. Beetle Rosecrans. And, I mean, there were, I want to say 19, 20 riders that they brought in, mostly from the States. And a lot of the guys were on the circuit, Woody, and some of these guys injured, so it was almost to the luck of the draw for who ended up on that set.
Got it.
And, at the end of the day, the people who were supposed to be there were there.
Yeah, my good friend, because I was from Kansas City. When that movie came out, I lived in Kansas City, and my good friend Rick Molinterno was in that.
That's right.
Because he had broke his leg, so he asked for your autograph.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
we were like, wait a second. We didn't know he was in it, so we saw the theater. We're like, where's Rick? Wait.
The story about that is the only unrideable part of Hell Track were those little berms. It was just not a rideable. It was kind of an afterthought, and Rick screwed his ankle up on that. And so Hal, being smart and savvy to this business, is like, we'll throw Rick a line, give him a featured role in hopes that he doesn't sue us later.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how things often work.
Yeah.
And for the people like Mike Miranda or him, it's being featured in that movie is kind of a cool name check to have.
Yeah, they got the cameo in there.
That's right.
Sometimes the cameos are more remembered than if you have a like cool little spot. But yeah. Rick's cool. He's still ripping to this day.
That's right.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: how did you get in the movie? Because I'm going to talk all about RAD first, then we're going to talk about everything else you got going on. Because when I see, like, okay, I just in my mind I'm thinking if I was Crew Jones, I would walk around and be like, do you ever feel like your name's Crew? Do people call you that more?
I have to acknowledge that, especially in the circles I run in. If I'm at these BMX events or these conventions, if you don't respond to that name, you're just being a jerk.
Yeah.
It's just part of who I am. It's what I'm known for.
Right.
And to pretend that's not how people know me would just be like, come on.
It'd be stupid.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel. Like, because if I would have been, I feel like I'm Snake Plissken from Escape from New York.
Okay.
So if I was the lead role now, I would always go by Snake.
It's funny. Occasionally
what up, Snake? Not Rick, bro.
On Halloween, we hand out candy to thousands of kids, and once in a while I'll wear my Crew Jones jersey. And a couple times people are like, yeah, you're too old for that, dude. Yeah, that's not you. And so that's fun to be called out as like, yeah, you can never play that part. That's
but kids dress up as you quite a bit.
It's true.
I've done autograph signings and events with you, and they show up dressed up as you.
Dressed up as me.
To this day.
Named Crew Jones or Crew or Cruiser, stuff like that. I still see to this day an entire family show up to these events, all in the RAD T-shirts and stuff like that. So it's a multi-generational.
And how many years has it been since the movie came out?
Oh, man, 38.
And still to this day, it left that impact, where even the young kids are dressing up as Crew.
Yeah, at a certain point, it struck me around the 25th anniversary that this has kind of reached cult status. It's not going away. As long as people live and breathe, they're going to be watching this movie, kind of like a Star Wars or a Karate Kid or something like that. It's just part of the fabric, and
right.
And now more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it left a huge impact. And it's cool to this day because, being a bike rider, it's always getting people into bike riding has always been kind of a mission on my end. Like, I get more people involved with what I love to do. This sport's amazing. How did you get the role? Did you? I mean, obviously you got to try out for stuff, but you said you're from Dallas, right?
I'm from Dallas. And
But did you live in California when you got the role, or did you live in
no,
Dallas?
so just a quick rewind. I did my first movie out of Dallas. I played a jockey, and it was basically like RAD on horseback. It was, you know, win the race, kiss the girl, all that. But we shot it in Kentucky on location. It was my first movie. I was a teenager, and I was surrounded by an Oscar winner, Jose Ferrer, and this young guy out of Kentucky named George Clooney. And it was his first movie also. His cousins were on the show, so we called cousin George down. Yeah, come down to Lexington, be a part of this. So he came down, and he was part of our little clique, the Danger Boys.
What was the name of the movie?
And They're Off. It was thankfully never released. It was just, it was terrible on like a Plan 9 from outer space, bad filmmaking. But I was surrounded by majorly talented people, and it was mine and George's entree into show business. And George's cousin, Miguel Ferrer, who you'd know from RoboCop and a million TV shows, both, or had us both come out and live in his mother, Rosemary Clooney's guest house, respectively. And so we were kind of at Miguel's behest to come out here and throw our hat in the ring. And it just seemed like a natural transition for us. And it worked out okay for me, worked out really good for George. But this is one thing I've learned about celebrity and have grown up and known a lot of these guys is I don't envy a one of them, not a one of them. Because there's certain pressures that come with extreme fame. It tends to be a killer. Like you go to an early grave often if you're too famous. Too much candy will rot your teeth. And it's interesting to be around it, but to be at the center of it, I can go have a life. I can go down to the diner. Nobody's going to bother me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I go to a BMX event and people recognize me as Crew Jones, that's cool, but I can turn it off and on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas a super celebrity, they don't have that. They don't have it. Anyway, that's a rant. So I did that movie, ended up in California just a couple years later, took some really good acting classes in Dallas where I met a young Lou Diamond Phillips. And so we kind of started together also, and I ended up out here first. And
How old were you?
22 to 23 in that age range when I moved out here permanently. And I had an agent. I had my union card. I had some money in the bank.
So you were good to go. You were young.
I had a lot
of.
of advantages as opposed to just showing up at the Greyhound station.
But you also had a good look too. You had like that look. You had like a, you know what I mean?
I do. But there's a lot of good-looking people out there. It's just it was who I knew. I was serious about the game.
Yep.
I had some game on my own and a resume that I could at least, in my mind. Oh, I've done this before. I can do it again. And before I knew it, I was booking TV shows out here.
How did you get the first role though for the movie in Dallas? How did that come about?
Well, my second cousin, who I'd never met, conned some banker into bankrolling his film to the tune of like $10 million in 80s money.
That's crazy money.
When
Back
dollar
then.
bills were that big. The banker who bankrolled it ended up going to jail for fraud. But the point is, we ended up on a movie set for 6 months.
Did you always want to be an actor, though? Or was this just something you just said, I'll just try this
I can't
out?
say it was a job that I went, I could do that. My brother was an actor. My dad was an actor. But it was not a possibility in suburban Dallas in the 70s. It was just not on my radar as something that I could actually pursue. And I was washing windows. And my brother kind of brought me in on the still photography aspect of creating this movie, and before I knew it, I was number one on a call sheet on a multi-million-dollar production in Kentucky. How does this happen?
That's crazy.
No,
But you said something though, that I didn't know this. Your family was actors.
yeah. My brother was in the professional theater program in Southern Methodist University, SMU. My dad was a college actor, so it was around me. And
So there was knowledge of it in the home.
Yeah, I took drama in high school. And it's like, yeah, sure, I can do that. I can act. But again, it was
But
just...
you never thought it'd be like on the silver
Why
screen.
would I? This is crazy talk.
Right.
Yeah, it'd just be like, yeah, I'm going to Mars. No, it's just, yeah, it was not. It was just not.
Nowadays, dudes are going to go to Mars.
That's right.
What I hear.
Tell somebody.
We're all going to live in Mars soon.
Oh
so
yeah, I can't wait for that.
they better have a skate. Yo, Elon, build a skate park in Mars. Anyway,
Underground, I'm there. So yeah, it kind of snowballed into me ending up out here and auditioning. Along with a young George, I would see him on auditions, and isn't this cool? How did we end up?
So was he? You think that he was wanting to be an actor back then, or was this something
he
he
came
just
from a
kind of
show business family?
He did. Okay.
His dad was like the Regis Philbin of Cincinnati.
Oh, I see.
So
okay.
every time a celebrity come through Cincinnati to promote whatever, he would meet them and hang out on the set. And his aunt and uncle were in show business.
Got it.
So he was very much from a showbiz family, although he was a business major in college, and that's when we met. So I always knew if this guy gets 5 cents, he's going to be okay. He's going to be able to roll it into something great. Turns out he made more than 5 cents.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of episodic stuff and a lot of failed pilots. And then NBC just bet everything on George.
Yeah.
They're like, you're our new guy. And look
And
what
then,
happened.
yeah, look, no, yeah. But back then it was different. These people listening, and especially the younger generation, they might not understand that back then you had to live kind of like where it was at, or it wasn't going to happen for you.
That's right.
You know, if you lived in Dallas in the Midwest, it's like me. I lived in the Midwest being a BMXer, and like my best friend Dennis McCoy was the first sponsored pro that was paid outside of California. So that goes to show you, like, this is pre-internet, like Instagram, all this stuff. So it was a different world. Like, you had to really commit and be like, all right, like, if I'm going to do this. So when you went from Dallas to LA, you're like, okay, I'm committed. I did this first movie. I'm just going to go for it. You just went for it by yourself?
Let's do this thing. That's
what you did.
I was quickly. I was involved in some really good acting classes, but soon I helped found a theater company with a young John Lee Hancock, who did The Founder and The Blind Side, and he's like an A-list director now, and a young Brandon Lee, who was my best friend at the time. And
you were best friends with him?
Yeah, we were super tight roommates and mates. Just connected at the hip for a lot of events, and so I was soon surrounded by these just stellar talent. A young Brad Pitt was in my a circle of friends. A young Lou Diamond Phillips. Lou was the only one who had popped through because of La Bamba and really had made it. He was kind of like the guy that we all revolved around. But again, we're talking young Brad Pitt, young George Clooney,
So this is like you're in Hollywood now.
Yeah, up in the hills. Lou had a bachelor pad, and the doors were kind of open, and we started a band. And
what was the name of the band?
The Pipefitters with Lou Diamond Phillips. And because of La Bamba.
Who sung? Did he sing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden.
What did you do? What did you do in the band?
I played harmonica.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I'm a professional harmonica player, so I'm like, I better learn how to play this thing. So I started taking lessons and getting serious about it.
Do you have any recordings?
Yeah, it's out there, dude. You can.
What's it called again?
The Pipefitters with Lou Diamond Phillips, and you can look us up. We played Farm Aid. I mean, we played some big venues.
Oh, no way, really?
We did stadium tours and bus tours, and it got fully strange and just whatever.
Is this after RAD or before RAD?
After RAD.
After RAD, okay.
After RAD, I started this theater company, and it morphed into a band of musicians. And so the musicians kind of, we had our own, like, career. It was fun for a time. And so people are like, what happened after RAD? I'm like, I had the best time of my life. I don't know. I continued doing movies and television and traveling around on tour buses. Again, people know me from RAD, but I've done a lot of cool stuff. And now that RAD has become the thing I'm known for, I'm kind of leaning into that, because there's a whole world out there that needs to be nurtured, because it's such a grassroots sport. It doesn't get the support of basketball or baseball or football in schools or colleges, but there are certain countries, Colombia, Mexico, Peru, that really love this sport. And this is what I'm becoming hip to, is there's a whole world outside of the USA who found that film, and it made such a huge cultural difference to them also.
The more people are probably popping up riding bikes then.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
right. And really, like building their own bikes, not like doing lawn mowers, or like paperboy routes.
Right.
They're actually building their bikes because that's what they've got.
Right.
And you don't think that engenders a passion and a love for what they do.
It's inspirational, yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, and I want to back up for a second. When you were talking about the early days of Hollywood, running around with like the celebrities we know now, like Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Lou Diamond Phillips. What was that like back then in the 80s in Hollywood? I'm always curious because I still was in Missouri, and I've always been fascinated about that time of the hills and how Hollywood's, it's changed a lot since I've been up there. What was it like back then? Was everything just so fresh and new? And
well, to me, everything was new. I was a young actor.
I mean, not completely fresh in Hollywood. I mean, just the vibe of the cultural films and stuff.
I was coming at it from the acting standpoint and really taking that seriously, because now I'm surrounded by world-class actors who are staring at me going, okay, your turn. And so I was studying at the most celebrated acting school in town.
Which was?
The Beverly Hills Playhouse. I choke on that because it was run and is run by a certain religious group that I'm vehemently opposed to. Okay. But the talent that was coming out of that were people like Adam Sandler and Jane Leeves from Frasier and Faith Ford from
back then.
Murphy Brown. But these were up-and-comers. And I'm looking at him going, well, you're awesome, and you're awesome, and you're awesome. And so it was a smaller talent pool at the time, so it was only a matter of time before some of these people started popping out and really making a name for themselves. So I had that acting group that I was involved in there, and then it kind of morphed into my little theater company that I had.
What was the name of that?
Illegal Aliens. Legal Aliens, and that was John Lee Hancock's production and group, and he was the main visionary behind it. Is kind of like a Steppenwolf type scenario, and it featured myself, George Davis, and a young Brandon Lee, and I can tell you, all those personalities that I named. The friends and the circle of friends understood that Brandon was going to be the bust-out star of all of us. It was just clear as day, dude.
And what year was that when you met him?
88. I met him through Miguel Ferrer, and it was post-RAD, and so we...
You already kind of had some... You already did
I had a circle of friends. I had a theater company. I had a whole life.
You had some shit going on.
Yeah, I had a life out here, and all of a sudden I became friendly with Brandon, and he became part of my circle because he didn't have a lot of friends in Hollywood. He
came from like Seattle.
Well,
or
he'd grown
right?
up in Torrance and did a couple of foreign films, and then he was out here kind of on his own. And
I don't know why I thought it was Seattle. Isn't that where he's buried there?
That's where he's buried.
Yeah,
he and his dad.
Yeah.
His dad spent some time there.
Yeah. Okay.
And Brandon was born in.
So obviously, you never met his dad because his dad passed in the '70s, right? Yeah.
He brought me up to his dad's grave the year before he passed. And
oh wow!
Kind of introduced me to his dad, and
that's a crazy story that happened with him, huh?
It's unfortunate on so many levels, and not the least of which is that it happened again recently, and that people still didn't learn their lesson enough to not let it happen again. But we celebrate.
Oh, you're talking about the whole Alec Baldwin thing. Yeah.
Ridiculous. And you only heard about it because it was Alec Baldwin. It's not uncommon for people to die on movie sets. It's just not. You hear about it when it's an actor or a high-profile stunt, but it's not that uncommon.
But being linked into like the circle, you probably hear a lot more than what other people would.
Yeah, and obviously it lands differently with me because I've got fat opinions about gun safety on set and how that's handled, and that it happened again is egregious. But
it is kind of crazy how it happened. I mean, it's weird. It's all of it's kind of mystery.
Yeah, it is crazy. And with Brandon, there were certain synchronicities, and I won't go too deep, but his dad did a movie called The Game of Death. That was his last movie. And it was about an actor who gets shot with a prop gun on a movie set. And that's how Brandon ended up passing. And that had never happened on a movie set. For 80 years of movie making, that had never happened on a movie set. So there were some kind of synchronistic things. He threw me the script of The Crow when he first read it. He said, "This is great, Slim." It's my nickname. "This is great, Slim. They kill me in this one." You know, so there he was attracted to that kind of unusual. He had a dark streak about him. Not that he was morose or a bummer. He was just unafraid.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Unafraid. And that scares most people. Scared me.
Yeah. Well, wait. Yeah, that's. Seemed like he'd be kind of a. Is he a pretty intense person? Was he a pretty intense person?
Fun. He was very fun. He knew how to focus and train, like very intense. I would go see him train at Dan Inosanto's academy often, and his focus was extraordinary. But you understand this, being able to focus for short amounts of time and really make those leaps. And for somebody like yourself who's already talented in that arena, man, it's extraordinary what you can do if you really lean into your natural gifts. Yeah,
it is. And the whole, I mean, between Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee is like, it's always just seems something weird about all of it. I don't know.
What's weird is what I was talking about earlier.
You would know more than me.
Well, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that kind of fame and that kind of pressure is deadly. Rosie O'Donnell said, fame is a toxic drug, you know, and we see it played out all the time. That was not the case in Brandon's world.
No.
He was on a movie set surrounded by people paid to protect him, you know. Could have been him on a different day. You know what I'm saying? He was devil may care. And fast on a Harley and all these things. You
Got
know,
it, yeah.
You know, and had the James Dean poster on his wall and all that stuff. So be careful what you think about.
You'll attract it, good or bad.
He became that.
Got it.
And he was into it, becoming a legend and creating a legend around himself. He understood the power of it. Why wouldn't he, considering who his dad was?
Yeah.
And the fact that all of this happened to his dad, and he was like right behind him. Let's go. I'm ready for the scrutiny. I'm ready for the people. You can't be your old man. Believe me, he got a lot of you can't be your old man.
Oh, yeah, when your dad's Bruce Lee, I'm sure.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. He didn't become Brandon Lee till after he died. You know what I'm saying?
I got it. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's a hard one. You know, when your dad's like that. I mean, your dad's, you know.
Good luck with that. So that was what was brave about Brandon, is he was ready to go, yeah, I can do this.
So how did you guys meet? Just kind of circle?
Through Miguel, a mutual friend, and we were in an acting class together, like I mentioned, and we started doing scenes together, but we just clicked immediately and started hanging out and going to theaters and restaurants and bars and traveling, and we did some publicity tours together. I remember going to New York with him when he was on the Today Show, and just fun stuff.
Yeah.
And you always think, well, these days are never going to end. And then you get the phone call. Okay.
What a trip.
New chapter. And so it took me a long time to kind of process that. And now we're in the celebration mode. Celebration. I'm so lucky. And so along those lines, Lou Diamond Phillips, I said, was a big part of our past and knew Brandon very well. And so we have got a script that we wrote about Brandon. We're trying to get that made. In the interim, the great Robbie Krieger from The Doors read this script and decided to write a song about Brandon, basically from my point of view. Now, if you're me, a child of the 60s, growing up on the Beatles and the Doors and the Stones. And
you are stoked right now.
And then you meet Robbie Krieger, and then he writes a song for you, and then you produce it together. It's like, yeah, this is...
Who's singing it?
Robbie.
Wow.
Now, we had talked about...
Are you doing the harmonica on this bad boy?
No, dude, I took a back seat on this one. I helped put it together. And
this is some Bob Dylan shit with the harmonica?
It's a big deal, dude. Just to be in the same room with these cats is a big deal. And so it was funny. We were looking for different singers and who could do this and
I didn't know he sings.
I'm getting to that. Oh. So he did the scratch track, and our friend Steve Lukather, who was going to be on it, he's like, "That's it. You don't need me. This sounds great. Who's that?" "That's Robbie." "Well, have him cut it." He did like the scratch track, and so he went in and cut the vocal, and it's not good. It's great. Now, he doesn't have a classically trained voice like Pavarotti, but neither does Bob Dylan, or neither does John Mellencamp or Neil Young. These are storytellers.
Yeah.
Who can drop into their own song and nobody can do it better. They may be able to hit the notes a little more cleaner, but so it's one of those things. He wrote it in a very short amount of time and did the vocals, and you're like, I didn't know you had it in you, sir. God bless you. Thank you for your service. So it came out better than I could have hoped, and we plan to drop it on Brandon's 60th birthday, which is in February. I think it's the 1st of
So it's through your point of view.
It is.
You mean your point of view?
I got to say it is.
Of like
dude.
how you felt about him
yeah,
as a
well,
person?
it's about losing my best friend.
Got
And the point of it is that Brandon, and talking about Brandon. So yeah, he took on that mantle, and I don't know how many other people that Robbie has written songs for besides me and Jim Morrison, but it's a short list.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty
Crazy,
short.
dude.
Yeah.
It's like that's it.
That's pretty wild. That's
it's pretty
wild.
weird. It's
Yeah.
pretty weird. So when you think of it in those terms, I don't have a way to contextualize it except that I just leaned into what I loved, and this is how you know you're doing well or you did something right. Is now you're talking and working with the best in the business, not some of the best, the best.
Yeah.
Goats, and
Yep.
I'm looking at one.
I am too.
And that's
We're
what I'm
both
saying.
goats.
That's all the evidence that I need that something is going right here. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just surrounded by kings
Seems like it's been that way since you started.
since day one.
Yeah. Since
And it's only recently occurred to me that the day I walked on to my first movie set, I've been surrounded by kings at every step of the way.
it all organically happened.
Tip of the spear. Yeah, absolutely. Well, organically, when I found my footing as an artist and not even made a ton of money at it every day. It's just, this is what I am. This is who I am. And look who's showing up on my doorstep. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's positive energy, dude, too.
It's,
you know what I mean?
That's
the attraction, bro.
That's my new religion. So I've studied Hinduism and Buddhism and Christianity, but positive vibes are absolutely my religion. And I can't do so much about what's going on in the world except focus on what I love, and it creates worlds. I've seen it happen. So I live this kind of fantasy life that is fed by the world because I can show up in a town that I've never been in, hundreds of people showing up, giving me money and telling me they love me for walking in the door, dude. Now I didn't earn that. I don't really deserve it.
Well, why don't you think you deserve it?
Well, for that job, I don't deserve it because it was 6 weeks out of my life 40 years ago. Here's why I could deserve
Yeah, but
it.
it left it. It's no different than if you write a record like The Doors,
That's right.
and then
That's
50
right.
years later,
That's
they're
right.
like,
Nobody wants to hear the Wings. They want to hear the Beatles. They want to hear the thing that made the impact in their lives, right?
Yeah.
So that I completely understand. But I've done 10 million auditions and 10 million shows that nobody saw, and this is the one that's going to be in my obituary. I'm a lucky guy, dude.
Yeah, well, they always say you only need one yes, right? That's what someone told me once. I was like, you only need one person to say yes. And I was like, oh, all
Yeah.
right. Or one opportunity, and it could lead to another opportunity.
So to way back up, so I'm out here in California. I do a TV show called Hill Street Blues, maybe
Okay.
my first network TV show. And Hal Needham sees this show on TV not once, but twice. Just before he gets to casting, he sees it again on repeat. And I got another residual check, and he calls me in. And he already knew he liked my work. So I didn't have to convince him. I sat on a mongoose bike. I want to say I read maybe 2 pages of dialogue, and that was it. That was my audition. And
That was it.
that was it.
Yo, back in the 80s, though, they did so many cultural films. Me and Jeff were talking about that earlier. Like, they made a film about breakdancing and about, like, and then they did breaking and Beat Street, and they did thrashing, and they did BMX, and they did, like, urban cowboy. You don't see movies like that nowadays.
That's right. And RAD was influenced by all of these, and that's why they had the bicycle boogie sequence in there, because there were all these dance movies
Well, you had
out
the
there.
theme song, too.
Sure.
It was Send Me an Angel, basically.
Yeah,
kind of
it
the theme.
became, in retrospect, very important to the movie is that soundtrack.
That's what I mean. Movies had that back then. We were talking about the two soundtracks were really important with movies, and it just seems. Do you feel like that's diluted a lot nowadays compared to what it was in the 80s. In the 80s, it just seemed very more cultural. Everything just seemed to be more impactful.
Well, certainly,
I don't know.
Like music,
maybe I'm wrong,
music
but-
video sequences in the '80s movies were a big part of '80s movies, you know, and RAD, part of the magic of that movie is it does a music video about every 10 minutes. You know, there's a nice music and action sequence that people can go, oh, okay.
Oh yeah. So okay, I understand that. Yeah. So then your audition was like pretty minor.
Very minor. My audition was being on network TV and having Hal like what I did. It had no resemblance to the crew character, but he liked it. And as I found out years later, the producers wanted another actor. And, you know, I shouldn't mention his name, but his initials are Robert Downey Jr. And
For RAD?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The producers wanted him, and Hal's like, no, he's arrogant. Get Bill Allen. This is what I heard. And so it pays to be nice. Was I the best actor for it? Nope. I was the nicest actor for it. And
No, you did awesome, dude. What are you talking about?
Well, I'm just saying, if you want to spend 14 hours on set with somebody, you want it to be a pleasant experience.
Yeah, it's like being in a band, too. I always
That's
say
right.
that. Like, yo, you're only on stage for like an hour, if that. You got 23 more hours on the road with this fool.
It's
You know what I mean?
important. And
Yeah.
at that stage of the game, he had done it all. He had made his millions. He just wanted to have a good experience on a film set. So that was very important.
So, oh wow, what a trip! So you got the part, dude.
Got the part.
Okay, so you got the part, but you had no idea what it was going to turn into, what it would be, right? So you're just like, this is another movie, or this is like a
Well-
big. Well, let me back up for a second. Hill Street Blues, were you a character, or were you cameos on that? You were a
Yeah,
full.
I had a nice guest star. Like,
you were on there repeatedly. Okay.
Yeah, I had a
awesome.
nice role.
I never knew that. That's right. That's pretty
well,
cool.
it was a nice role, and it was an important television show at the time. And
Yep, it
all of
was
a
huge.
sudden, I'm in the mix.
Yep.
6 months earlier, I was, washing windows. Anyway, it's weird how quickly things happen. And so when I got RAD, Hal was not the most bankable director in Hollywood, but he sure had a string of hits to his name, and it's like, well, you're part of the mix now, and you don't know what's coming. And then when I showed up on set, I'm looking around at Hell Track and all the writers, and I'm like, this is going to blow up. Nobody's seen this before. So people ask me often, did you know it was going to be a big deal at the time? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hell Track, you backflip on a bike. I mean, this is new territory.
That was Jose Yanez.
Yeah, that's right. They brought him out specifically. He was the only guy on the planet, right, who could do it at the time.
At the time, yeah. What I liked about RAD was the fact that, like, at that time of BMX, we were always in the shadow of racing. So a freestyle was, because freestyle really hadn't had like its mark yet that it has today. So it was new. So what we would do is we would race, and then we would do freestyle in the parking lot. And people were like, what are you doing these tricks for? And like, but I always leaned more towards the freestyle because I was more of like, I could express myself that way. So when RAD came out, what I liked most about it is that it showed that aspect of freestyle with the racing that kind of helped build like what we have today. You know what I mean? To where like that helped. When I was 15, I probably felt a little bit different because I was a little punk. I was like, man, because we wanted to have our own independence as freestyle bike riders because we didn't have that love in the beginning. We just didn't. At least where I was from, it wasn't that way. And so what I liked most about it was, besides you being awesome and the movie and the whole thing, is that it showed some tricks because that's what we did. And that's because people would always say they thought we were bike racers. And that always was a pet peeve to us. Like, no, we're freestylers. And no one really knew what that meant. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was cool.
It was cool, and the real bicyclists understand that there's a lot of license taken. I mean, because there's so many disciplines portrayed in RAD, street and vert and skate park and
Jumping.
paper route. It's like,
Yeah.
what? And for the people who just want to have a good time, it's all just that, a good popcorn movie and a good time. But really, on paper, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? That how could he learn to win Hell Track if I couldn't bunny hop a curb, or did all my training on a bike route or a paper route? But it was clever the way they kind of folded in there.
But it works, yeah, because
it
it works. I mean, once you get on when you're racing, you're on a bike, you just get on the track and then you could figure it out and you just start going. But did you have any riding history at all? Like, were you ever like a bike rider or just straight actor?
No, I had my bike taken away as a child. My mother was anti-bikes, so I could only ride my neighbor's bike.
She didn't want you to get hurt.
That's right. She
Yeah.
saw my brother nearly get greased on a bike, and that was it for me. She's like, I'll buy a car when you're 16. Well, tell that to an 8-year-old,
Yeah.
So, that was the ironic and kind of the law of attraction thing about that is I always wanted to be the guy on the bike. Growing up, I just wanted to be
You
the
became
guy.
the biggest
and
guy
then
on
I
the bike.
became the guy on the bike.
Became the biggest guy on the bike.
It's one of those things where you just got to pinch yourself and you're like, I dreamed this, and then it happened. Must be something to dreaming, and so now I'm into daydreaming, really into daydreaming, and making those.
Oh,
happen.
for real? You are right now? Yeah, like
yeah.
you we got to keep your dream alive.
Yeah, we're doing it. Right now.
Right now, yeah.
Right
Well,
now.
that's the law of attraction you were talking about.
Yeah.
Your mind to put you where you put your mind is where you put yourself, in a sense. Like what you get what you think and say.
Sure, and
Good or bad.
there's an old movie. My brother could tell you the quote about. I don't have to see how well this guy's doing. I just have to look at his shoes. People used to be into nice shoes and shoe leather, and it's like if you couldn't afford new shoes, you're out of luck, dude. So I've got new shoes. I've got shining friends. I've got artistic projects that I just want to get out of bed and dance. I'm so excited for.
Absolutely, that's great. That's a great feeling because that's called living. That's what life's about. Living it. Is there ever going to be a sequel to RAD? Do you think?
Good question. I'm developing a BMX script right now that, whether in name or just in spirit, will carry the BMX tradition forward. I've got a very, very loyal audience, and I get asked that question several times a day. So I can tell you I'm on it, and a rose by any other name smells just as sweet, so I don't know what I'm going to be able to call it in the end.
Radder. Call it Radder.
Call it Radder, call it awesome, call it your mama. It doesn't really matter. And this is the analogy I use is John Wayne played the same character in about 40 movies.
Yep.
Different name, but it was John Wayne on a horse.
Exactly.
That's what people want to see. They want to see John Wayne on a horse.
Yep.
And if they want to see Crew Jones on a bicycle, I might fall off that bicycle, but I'm going to give them what they want.
Yeah.
Because they deserve it, man. When you see people driving 3 states with the whole family in their RAD T-shirts, dude, and everybody's just like this, it's humbling and enabling in a way to pursue what they want for me, which is another project. All right.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, I could see it right now, like Radder, and then you have a kid and you teach your kid how to do this. And you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And
You're
I
right
think
in this.
everybody has a storyline in their head, and they almost all fit into that thing. And it's just it's what people want. So again, at a point, it becomes bigger than me, and I can just get out of the way and let this train go. But I like this train, and I'm jumping on this train. And somebody gave me the ball at some point, so I'm running with it, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, you wrote a book too, didn't you? Did you write a book?
I did. It's actually an Amazon bestseller called My Rad Career. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at my website or Barnes & Noble. MyRadCareer.com is my website. And it's about my Hollywood stories. It's not just about RAD because RAD is only, like I said, 6 weeks out of 40 years.
Absolutely. I've learned a lot about you just talking to you right now. I never knew a lot of this stuff, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, keep going about the book.
Well, it pretty much details my life in Hollywood and some of these personalities that I mentioned earlier, and you wouldn't know about them unless I had written them down. So I took probably 40 of my best showbiz stories and linked them up in sequential order, and there you are. But I did pay special tribute to Brandon Lee because he effing well deserves it. And, these other personalities that maybe not as famous as Brandon or George or Brad, but certainly as talented and deserving of celebration.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
good for you, man. I can't wait to hear the song. When's the song? Like, is there anybody else in the song that we know that was on the track, or is it all?
Well, we have, man, I wish I had a personnel list. It's the keyboard players from the Foo Fighters and the drummer from the Wallflowers. And
That's the band?
yes.
This is solid.
Yeah, and
Were you there for the recordings, obviously?
I was in there for part of it. And then Paul Rothschild, whose father, Dan Rothschild, produced all the Doors records except for L.A. Woman. He produced Janis. He produced Jimmy's records. His son is now one of Robbie's musical partners, so he plays bass on it, and he was the musical coordinator. It's called The Raven, The Crow, and the Dragon, and we plan to drop it on Brandon's birthday, February 1, I believe, of 2025. He'll have turned 60. 60,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you said earlier. 60 years old. Wow, time flies, dude. It's crazy.
Can you imagine what a 60-year-old Brandon Lee would look like
Ripped.
or be doing?
Probably ripped.
Yeah.
like
I just
long
saw
hair, still
Lenny
have his
Kravitz the
hair.
other day. I'm like, he looks just like he did when he was 28. Brandon would be the same way.
Who's that you saw?
Lenny Kravitz running around without a shirt on. It's like, this isn't from the 80s. This is today. This is a 60-year-old Lenny Kravitz, and who Brandon knew, and we all loved his music at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of freedom and a brand new day. Whatever's gone before, it's a brand new day, man. And that was what was cool about Lenny is he really brought like a new hope to rock music and to young people.
So you grew up around that dude too, and the whole vibe.
I wish I was a big fan. But
Any other musicians you hung around about in the 80s in the hills running around there, like
well,
you know,
yeah,
the Rainbow or
I
the
mean,
Roxy or
listen,
whatever?
my hero in life is a guy named Steve Lukather, and he's the guitarist for Toto, and he's also on the road with Ringo a lot now. I met him through Miguel Ferrer, and he's in a documentary that I produced recently. He just showed up. I produced a record that he played on, and so he is probably the most celebrated guitarist, studio musician of our lifetime, and he stopped being a studio musician for other people back in the 90s.
Got it.
So with a 20-year career, he played on something like 10,000 records. He played on all of Thriller, that Michael Jackson record. That's Steve Lukather.
Oh, that's
Steve.
awesome. Yeah, that's
he
awesome.
wrote that. So he's one of the people who can have a multi-decade career, play at the top of his game, and just still be the most humble, sweet, don't look at me kind of guy when he walks in a room. You know, he's just not look at me, Ma. And if I had that kind of talent, dude, I would be everywhere all the time.
That's how I am, dude. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
Yeah, but our bass player for the Pipe Fitters ended up in Nashville and producing for like Faith and Tim McGraw and Taylor Swift and all these people. So now we're working together again with Lou Diamond Phillips, and we're gonna start making music together online, trying to build music online.
Get a tour going, dude.
Getting the band back together.
You know, get the dust off that harmonica. Let's go.
Well, I'm a guitar player now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh,
I picked
okay.
up the guitar. I want to say during the pandemic. I'm like, F it. Now's the time.
You
Now's
gotta
the
do
time.
both.
I do.
You know how Bob Dylan has the little.
I got that, dude. So
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I got.
Let's
I
go.
got it all figured out. So now I'm a multi-instrumentalist. Who saw that coming? And again, surrounded by the best in the business. OMG, dude. And again, it's just like, wow.
Do you think it's all connected in a sense? People ask me all the time because I have a band and I ride and I act and do all these things as well. And people always ask me the difference between them. I'm like, they're kind of all connected in
It's
a
all the
strange
same
way.
thing. It's all the same thing.
It's a good
So that's
expression.
what I learned as artists is everything. Drinking this coffee, looking at that, talking to you. Everything can be an art piece. And if you lean into that, it's like, this is my art life. Then your life becomes like this performance art piece. And with guys like us who have an audience, they're along for the ride. They're along for the ride.
Yeah,
dude.
exactly.
How fun is that? We're not just in an alleyway performing for ourselves. We've got an audience who's like, give us more, give us more.
Let me ask you this. Absolutely. For me, when I do something, I do it, and then I just I did that, and then I forget about it. And I keep, what's next? Like, what's next? As an artist, because that just triggered when you were talking to me about that, is I thought like, yeah, as an artist, I feel like I'm always like, what's next? Like I try to enjoy the moment, but I'm like, I know this moment's going to end, or the show, or this, like whatever it is, like what's next in order to stay in the game? Like, do you ever feel that way?
I think that's the secret to life, success, happiness, money, is to be happy with what's going on, but really excited about what's coming down the pike.
Yeah.
Now you're on the gravy train, dude.
Yeah.
And now you're turned into the radio station you want, and all that music's just going to come pouring in. There's no weird science about it. It's not. It seems mystical and magical, and it feels that way, but it's very predictable. And I see it in other people. And then you start looking for actual signs, and now you're just mental and rich.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I always say like, it's always kind of like it's weird. You know, you never really feel satisfied. I don't believe in a thing of like being on the top, because then I feel like when you're on the top, there's nowhere else to go.
Well, I don't believe in the concept of who's the best. Well, it's anybody at any given day.
Who wants it more too? I was never the best bike rider.
Yeah, was Buster
You know what I mean?
Douglas
But I wanted
was Buster Douglas the best boxer in the world the day he beat Mike Tyson? Nope.
But he beat him.
He just beat him that day.
Yeah.
But Mike Tyson's
Looks
still
like,
a better.
is Jake Paul a better fighter than Mike? Oh wait,
No,
my bad.
no, but you know what? Yeah, same thing.
Oh yeah, it's all a show. Yeah, that was a show. But yeah, that's a whole nother. That's a cash grab.
Anybody can be beaten at any time on any day, and any actor can turn in a bad performance anytime on any given day.
Well, we're humans.
This is the arts, dude. And at the end of the day, who cares? You know, it all goes away eventually. But
people always used to say that. They used to go, "Who's the best?" And I'd be like, "Well, hold on a second. He can go higher, but this guy has better style. But this guy does more tricks." So it's like, what do you mean? Who's the best? Like, there's no such thing. The best of what? You could do this trick. I could do that trick. I'm talking from a freestyle trick perspective, of like a rider perspective. We'd say the same thing. Like, it's not who the best is. It's like, how bad do you want it?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Who inspired you the most at what day? I'm asking you. What was there a time? Was there
me personally?
Yeah. Was there a rider? Was there a moment where you're like, I got to be a part of this?
Oh, for bike riding?
Yeah.
I think for me it was like, man, when I think back, I just want to get out of the house, right, and just ride. But the first time I saw something that was like outside of us kids riding on the street and putting a brick in a board and jumping off curbs and stuff was probably I saw might have been the movie E.T. or no, it was before that. I saw a magazine in 7-Eleven, and it was these dudes riding in these skate parks. And that would have been like the Fiolas and the Blythers and the generation before me. And that's what inspired me, you know, because where we lived, it was different. You know, it wasn't like I was always California dreaming. I thought everything was out here, you know, all the skate parks and all the opportunities and stuff. Did you feel that way coming from Dallas? Yeah, you had to, because you knew, like we said earlier, back then, there was no internet. So you had to like go there and meet these people.
Yeah.
You couldn't just be like, oh, I got an audition and I'm going to film it and send it into this casting director. You had to meet the casting director, go in, know your lines, get filmed right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was different.
Yeah.
Different.
I had a really serious acting teacher and coach, and he was on me like, you know, like stink. But yeah, I was in Hollywood and trying out to be in the movies. I mean, it was all overwhelming and the coolest game I had ever heard of. So I thought, well, this is it. This is me now forever. This is what I'm going to do. And I had no idea that there are other things to do out here. And I was going to discover other interests and ways to just be an artist.
Yeah, but you had to master one craft in order to another. That's kind of how I feel like with writing, and I was able to do other things. You said earlier when you walked in that you're doing movies right now. You doing more movies right now?
Yeah, that's correct.
Anything you
so
can talk about,
I have a BMX script that's well in development. I would say in pre-production, and a documentary about the time I was referring to earlier, and some of Hollywood's biggest heavy hitters have jumped on board, and so I'm
you can't really talk about it too much.
I could talk about it. I don't want to upset anybody. I can tell you that all of a sudden I feel like I'm going to be redefined as a film person, in that RAD is all I'm known for by the populace, and now this is going to change the conversation a little bit.
Does that bother you? Let me ask you, sorry to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
Does it bother you that even though you've done all these other things and all these other projects you're on, does it bother you that people refer to you as Crew Jones? That's all they know you as is RAD. Does it upset you
Not
ever?
at all. Just mostly because it's that movie and that character. If I had played, a one-off murder victim in some horror film, and these guys make money going around to horror conventions and autograph conventions.
Right.
You can make a good living doing that.
Yeah, appearances.
But I have an opinion that what we do on the screen has an effect on the audience, and they often, like you did, go out and try to replicate what they saw on screen.
Absolutely.
Good, bad, or indifferent. So I've been a part of the game of the bad part, playing the bad guy, running around with weapons, shooting weapons, throwing people off buildings, and it's like, well, that's not the message I want to put out.
Yeah.
And Hollywood is very hypocritical in that fashion.
Yeah.
In that we're so anti-gun, anti-violence out here, but man, do we crank out violent gun movies.
Oh, I always used to say that too. It'd be like, oh yeah, that would always crack me up. It's like, okay, so, but you had no problem making all this money and all this fame, like shoot them up in this movie, but now all of a sudden, like, it's not. Quit promoting it. Just do another movie. You know, if you're like, you know what I'm saying, though, I think a lot of people said, like, if you're
There's a price to pay. And if
Well,
Brandon's part of the conversation, that was a heavy price.
But they'll do it if it gives them their fame and their money, then they'll do it, and then they'll say, oh, now I have this audience, and this is how I really feel. It's
You're
like,
not taught to have a conscience as a performer.
Right.
Outside of soft porn or something like that. As long as you're getting paid as an actor, you've won.
Yeah.
Well, you got to think a little past that. Or I did. I was a little more conscious about, what I saw on the screen affected me. What I'm doing on the screen affects other people. This must be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, yeah, well, there's a lot of contradictories in a lot of things in life.
Not really. Not if you look at the big picture, dude.
Yeah.
It's really clear cut. And you don't have to be a psychologist. You don't need to be a weatherman to know which way the wind blows.
This is true. You're absolutely true. Do you feel like a lot of people get big names and then become politicians? Actors become all of a sudden they're politicians.
Well, it's
Is it because they get an audience?
They say, Washington is showbiz for ugly people. So it's the circles are very, very closely related.
Look at Reagan. He became president.
That's right. He was president of our union, and so I think people would be disturbed to know how much the government has to do with their entertainment and what the and
the agendas that are pushed through Hollywood
and news shows and
course.
what is being allowed to be shown.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of course. It's part of the control.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
works.
The network. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, dude, I'm stoked for you, and I'm glad
Thank
that you
you.
came by. And
I hope you have me
I learned
back.
a lot about you because I'll be real with you. I didn't know any of that stuff. Nothing about like anything outside of you being in RAD.
All right.
I didn't know any of that stuff.
All right, you gotta
so
read the book.
I think. Well, I knew you had a book.
I'll bring it
but,
next time.
But I think it's great, and I think you're multi-talented, and like I got a lot of respect for you. And I'm glad you came in. Is there a Instagram or a website you could drop for kids to follow you?
So
and people to follow you?
Instagram is Bill Slim Allen, all one word. I don't play that game much. I'm on Facebook sometimes. I've got a fan page on Facebook.
That's Bill Allen.
Bill Allen, yeah.
Got it.
And so my website, is myradcareer.com, all one word, and that's where you can find my book and some rad swag and stuff like that.
Awesome. You got the number plates.
I got
The
a
33
lot.
number
Yeah, I
plate.
got a lot of cool stuff, dude.
Yeah, you do.
A lot of cool stuff. We'll
I'm
talk.
happy for you. I can't wait to see all this, this movie you're talking about and hear this
Yeah,
song.
you're on board. You're in it, dude. You're on it. You're anything I'm involved in, you're right front and center invited, dude.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming
Serious.
in. Give me some love. Come
You're
on.
the best.
Boom. Boom.
Thank
Send me an angel. Let's
Right.
go. Let's go. Hey, thanks a lot for watching. Follow Bill. Stay rad. Peace out.
Everybody ready? Come on, let's go.